Are alcohol withdrawals dangerous? Yes, they are. Somebody who's been using alcohol for a long period of time or excessive quantities of alcohol can go into something called delirium tremens and seizures after abrupt cessation of ingestion of the alcohol. This is a normally accepted fact that medical professionals understand, and to avoid this, there are medications that they put the person on for about 2 or 3 days. These drugs are actually in the Valium class. They're called benzodiazepines. Sometimes Valium is used because it's a long-acting benzo. Other times, shorter-acting ones can be used. But these are the medications that are used as a bridge in somebody who's going through alcohol detox, and to avoid going into seizures and delirium tremens. To avoid these things altogether and to slowly withdraw them from these drugs afterwards. In total, it takes about 2 or 3 days, surprisingly shorter time than one would expect, even if they've been drinking for years and years. The high risk time is generally 2 to 3 days, maybe up to a week in total. So to summarize, alcohol withdrawals can be dangerous. It is best not to go cold turkey with alcohol. Better to speak to a medical professional, either your family doctor or at a detox. They can get you on the benzodiazepine medications for 2 or 3 days and slowly wean you off of that, so that a person's feeling much more comfortable and out of the high risk period. Can alcohol dependence be cured? Yes, it can, but the word cure is kind of a tough word. So a person can go into a long-term recovery where they abstain from alcohol and they're no longer using anymore, and live happily ever after, for example. Now, that's more fiction than truth, but there is a lot of truth that people who, once they've recognized that there's an issue going on, that they're willing to accept this diagnosis and move on in their life, there takes effort on a daily basis, more frequent at first, but as time goes on, when they have prolonged recovery, they can deal better and better with their urges, with the stresses in life, and they can have a long-term recovery. So those are better choice of words rather than cure, because cure is just it's just not a good choice of words, because it's very uncertain what we're referring to. So the better thing to say is that a person can have, yes, they can have a cure, but it's more like long-term recovery that's persisting and enduring over the years, and this person can recognize and change their ways in life so they can live their life in a healthy manner without dependency on their substance of choice. Can alcohol dependence be genetic? Yes. The quick answer is absolutely yes. Substance misuse or substance use disorders are very commonly known to be hereditary, that it does run in families. This does not mean that an individual is going to become a substance abuser later on in life, but they should be aware that if it runs in the family, that they're at higher risk to develop the behaviors that worsen substance misuse. So what I mean by the last part is that a person can engage in drinking alcohol or consuming drugs. That does not mean that they're going to become a substance misuser. It just means that they're more likely, if there's a family history of it, that there's more likelihood that they would fall into the depths of an addiction. Can alcohol dependency cause anxiety? Yes, absolutely. This is a common thing. I mean, of the common hangover, a person generally feels unwell the next day. They feel guilt over how much they consumed, and this is an anxious situation for them right there. That can affect anybody who drinks alcohol. However, somebody who is dependent on alcohol, they're using it on a regular basis, they're using it as a crutch. This is a common cycle, and it's not just exclusive to alcohol. This is common to all substances of abuse, that there's cycles of use and abstinence, and some of them can have a withdrawal syndrome upon abstinence, and this can lead to anxiety. So when a person, for example, is going through the withdrawal of alcohol or opioids, they tend to be very agitated, unwell, and anxious, and so that sort of can be used as a clue that there could be a problem with substance abuse going on. The most important thing to do is to recognize that this anxiety is part of something bigger, that this person is to show compassion and to realize this person is probably having a bigger issue going on, and to probably seek some help and instruction from a healthcare provider or a drug treatment counselor as to what to do to try to avoid this from happening in the future. So it is, again, anxiety is a cue that there could be some sort of alcohol or substance misuse problem going on, and that a lot of people end up going on antidepressants as well for anxiety, but really there's a substance abuse or substance misuse disorder that's going on underlying. So anxiety can be a very good cue to look for underlying problems. How does alcohol cause dependence? This is a difficult question, but there would be two answers to this. There's two sides to it. Dependence can be broken down into psychological dependence and physiological dependence. So psychological is when somebody is going through a rough time and they resort to their drug of choice, even including alcohol, to use it as a way of medicating themselves. If they don't have it, they might crave it. Yes, their body could be craving it because there's a physiologic dependence, but there's also mental craving. Typically when there's a problem, some sort of stressor in life, some sort of trauma, this is when people who are deep involved in their addiction tend to rely on their crutch. And so any sort of stressor can lead to increased intake. The physiologic dependency is more of the feeling when somebody stops taking the alcohol that they go through a withdrawal syndrome. The withdrawal syndrome can vary depending on how much use they've had, how often they've drank, how much they've drinking, but in the end it is the same for most people. And this is similar to what is a hangover, but much worse in a way that the withdrawal syndrome can also lead to agitation, tremors, even seizures. And so this is a pretty serious complication, and this is why it's important people who are thinking about stopping drinking that they should not do so, should not go cold turkey, because this can lead to medical complications including seizures. So it's important to seek medical professionals' assistance in this situation, and they can give medications to help prevent the onset of seizure while they're going through the withdrawal syndrome. So dependency is complicated. Just to summarize, there's psychological dependence and there's physiologic. Psychological dependence is when there's stressors and a person relies on their crutch, their drug of choice, and then physiologic stressors are their body is going through a withdrawal syndrome and feeling unwell, and the quickest way to prevent feeling this sick is to take another drink. How does alcohol dependence develop? That's a great question, and it's different for everybody. I can give a general example, and in this example, it's somebody who starts off in their late teens or even early teens, who tends to party with their friends and use alcohol occasionally. So there may not be a problem. However, some people might be binge drinking and feeling the consequences of that. Binge drinking is a problem when a person when it starts getting involved in their daily life. And so if they start sleeping in, missing school because they're hungover, missing work. So these are early signs right there of dependency or substance misuse. Later on, this person could end up moderating their alcohol use for several years, but then as life goes on and things become harder or some sort of challenge arises, particularly a steady chronic challenge, and if they're not having a good quality coping mechanisms, like to be able to speak with somebody about the problems they're going through, if they're not able to voice their opinions, share what's going on in their mind, if there's no outlet, for example, then these things can get worse, and the user ends up escaping their problems, medicating their pain away, whether it's actual pain or if it's psychological pain. But it tends to be a crutch with time, and people tend to rely more and more on the substance of abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs. Then it can get to a point where there's dependency, and this is much easier to develop with the opioids, for example. But with alcohol, dependency is when a person wakes up in the morning, they're hungover, and in order to feel better, they need more alcohol. So they can have what's called an eye opener or a drink in the morning. And that's another sign that there could be an alcohol problem. There's most likely an alcohol problem present. So as this person progresses through their life, they may end up relying on on their drug of choice or alcohol for more and more as they deal with more and more problems in life. They can tend to withdraw from things that they once enjoyed. They tend to withdraw from people. They can become irritable, moody, and disgruntled. And so these things kind of take time. And with alcohol, it's not like like it is with other drugs where a person has like a near-death experience. With alcohol, people can more or less, on average, can continue their daily life and continue their activities and not have any problems where things bottom out, where they've hit rock bottom. It's a slow, gradual decline of deterioration, and then finally there might be something that happens, like a family member or a medical complication of the alcohol. So that illustrates an example of a general direction of somebody who spirals very slowly from alcohol abuse. With drugs, like I said, the opioids, people can spiral out of control quicker. Especially, it seems like the stronger the drug, the more potent it is, the more rapid acting it is, whether it's alcohol or any other substance of abuse, people can have a harder time, and it can impair their quality of life much quicker. So to summarize this, how does alcohol cause dependence? It's a very complicated question, but to summarize it, becomes a gradual over-reliance on the alcohol over time, and that it starts impairing their quality of life, causing complications in their life, things like repercussions, things like missing school, missing work, not reaching deadlines, withdrawing from family members, and I hope this helps.